right. I've got Joe with us today, and you probably seen him on Instagram as at Mental Health Fitness. And Joe does a lot of things that I'm really interested in going over. So, Joe, my main question for you is, I know you've got a big following. I know you do the social media thing, and everyone's kind of curious about growing their social media presence. But specifically, I'm really curious about the branding part. You've done such a good job branding that I really just want to know more, and hopefully you can kind of give us some tidbits to help us grow our following.
No, absolutely. And it's been an amazing journey. I've been doing it for about a year, which is not super long in the social media world, but I had an amazing coach. I had some really good mentors. And I think one of the biggest things is you are your brand. Like you yourself are what people are looking to connect with. And in this world of information, right? We have so much information coming out. You can look up anything online right now. We don't have a lack of information. We have a lack of connection. And the way we connect with people is through relatability, through things that they're doing in their daily lives that they can relate to. And so really that's where I think the brand is kind of taken off, is people will relate to me on the weirdest things. They'll look at my fridge and be like, oh, I use that same barbecue sauce. And you're like, and then they'll become a client and just based on something so silly like that. So that's been a big part of it, is just putting my personal life out there and really seeing, how people resonate with that.
As a brand, do you feel like there's ever too much that you can put out there? Or do you feel like, just be authentically you no matter what, just give them everything?
Well, it definitely is like within the context of your business, right? Like, so there are some parameters you want to stick to. You want to create professionality. You want to create some sort of, you want to have some limits there for sure. But depending on your brand, I mean, you can take it to a lot of different levels. And emotions are ubiquitous. Like we can all relate on emotions. Like we can relate on, oh, I woke up today late, or I'm stressed out, or I'm having one of those days that, we all have. And when you connect on that level, it brings such a quicker connection to people. And so I think being open on our daily struggles, on our daily walk, on our, just how we're feeling that day, whether it's good, bad, indifferent, people are like, oh, okay, I get that. Like I can relate to that. I can resonate with that.
Okay, so what's your strategy though? Like when you're thinking about all the things that you're going to post, is there a main focus, or do you kind of like stray outside of the focus just to give it some variety? How do you go about strategizing your social media platform?
Right. And for me, it's such a personalized thing. And when I'm working with clients, the big thing is we figure out what their strategy is going to be. And it's like you almost draw a circle of, here you are as a person, here is your business. Where do those intersect? And what are the areas that you want to kind of bring those together? Because depending on what you're trying to express and what type of person you are, you really want to showcase those things, and you want people to see those things and then also bring it back to your main goal, your main message, which is the business that you're selling or the service you're providing. So it's kind of like following in those parameters, because it's so amazing. Like I think one of the biggest problems I've seen is business guys come at social media with a business perspective. And that's what's made their business successful. It really works. But business guys sometimes will get so wrecked on social media, and then some kid will come out. Like I had a client, he filmed on a Samsung phone, the crappiest video you've ever seen. But he was talking about like some experience he had where he lost somebody he cared about and blah, blah, and that video went viral. And it was just like, oh my gosh. And he got tons of clients from it. He got tons of interaction from it. And so really like figuring out what that is. And it doesn't necessarily have to be super deep or super, heartfelt or anything like that, or super dark or anything, but it's just got to be personal. It's got to be your daily life, what you're going through, what you had for breakfast today, what, if you got your dogs, if you've got your, your family, and what that looks like and what your daily life looks like. Because people look at that and they say, oh, me too.
So I recently read a book called The YouTube Formula by Daryl Eves, and you kind of brought up a subject that I remember in the book where it was this real estate agent, right? And she was trying so hard at YouTube, and we're a big YouTube platform here, so that's why I talk more about YouTube. But, I think most people are more interested in Instagram, which we are too. But essentially the whole idea behind this was she didn't really, she was just showing her homes and kind of doing this, whatever, and wasn't really sure what was going to hit. Well, all of a sudden, the content that actually hit was how to get like cat pee out of the carpet.
Yeah.
Or she also had she did manufactured homes, and people were really interested in the manufactured homes. So, and that was what was getting the most hits on her channel. So when she took a deep dive into her data, essentially they were like, yeah, you got to lean into the cat pee or you got to lean into the manufactured homes. So she was like, I don't want to be the cat pee lady. I'm not going to do that. So she went ahead and focused more on manufactured homes, even though she was like, I sell more than just manufactured home. I sell all sorts of different homes, but I'm going to focus on this because this is what people are liking. Now, for me, that's a challenge, right? You have to put a bunch of stuff out there, see what hits, and then you have to authentically lean into what's hitting. And I feel like that's where people kind of get tripped up. It's like, I know people like this, so I'm going to lean into it. But then you kind of, you're not as authentic about it because you're strategically going for that one thing. So sure. Do you have any advice to be, a little bit data driven for what people want, but also being authentically you?
Well, and again, like the end goal is the everything, right? So if her goal is not to sell cat pee, cleaner, then that is probably something where she could get eyes on her, and then she could throw out, hey, I also do manufactured homes, right? Sure. So it's like you get the eyes in on you with something authentic, something relatable, and then from there you can kind of transition into, oh, by the way, I also do insurance, I also do mortgages, I also do whatever. And with my own thing, like I'm selling fitness. Fitness is the age-old. There is nothing new in fitness. Like the guy who trained Thor, he was talking about him. He's this, $1 million trainer. And they're like, what is your secret to getting Thor in shape? And he's like, dude, it's broccoli, it's chicken, and it's working out hard. Like, he's like, it is not rocket science. So anybody trying to sell you something that is very, I wouldn't say like it's not unique, right? Those are the companies that really need to lean into the branding, lean into the personality, lean into their personal lives, because people will buy on an emotional level when they feel like they can relate to those people. And especially in the industries that are going to be dominated by AI. Like the mortgage guys and the brokers I'm talking to, the real estate agents, they're like, eventually people are just going to type it in like the Rocket Mortgage type thing, find the best mortgage. They don't even need to talk to somebody. But if they've got a connection with somebody and they're like, hey, man, I really like this guy. He went through something similar. He had a brother that, got injured in football and blah, 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 and whatever it is. And I had a brother that had that, and he sells mortgages. This is going to be my guy. Like, I don't care about Rocket Mortgage. I trust this guy. I relate to this guy. And the companies that aren't building that, the companies that aren't building the personal relationships through social media, which we have to be social on social media, which is such like an anomaly. People are just like, oh, I'll just put out content, but I won't interact or I won't actually form connections. The people who are really being social on social media are going to dominate, and the ones who aren't, they're going to get dominated. And it's sad because the Geicos of the world, the big, Rocket Mortgages, all these things, they've got so much money for advertisement. And it sucks because you see these businesses spend so much money on social media, but they're not getting the traction that they want because they're competing with these higher levels. But if you can come in with a personal relatability and really getting people to connect with you as a person, that is how you gain loyal customers for the rest of your life, really.
So you're kind of out here, you shoot out the likes, the comments, and you kind of respond to everyone from what I've seen. And you do that all yourself, right? You don't use AI. You don't use any bots or anything. You're just out here doing it.
I do have a manager who helps, and she is awesome. She's got a very similar personality to me, and she says whatever I would say. And it's funny because she's like, you got this, bro. Which is,
you're like, hell yeah.
Hell yeah, I would have said that, But again, I'm selling something that is extremely Like, I'm not selling some special formula. I'm selling something that anybody could look up online in 2 seconds. Like, that we are not in an information shortage right now. Information is not our issue. Connectivity is our issue. And we see that in the mental health world, right? Like, whenever I do it, like, what are you struggling with? More and more people feel disconnected. And I think a big part of that too is because we've built up our associations based on opinions, and we have so many opinions right now, right? Like, where we all used to read the same newspaper, but now we have news coming from all these different angles. We have opinions coming from all different angles, and opinions are infinite. Like, for us to connect on, say, a political opinion or a opinion about like certain ways to dress or certain ways to act or whatever, it's going to be very difficult. But if we connect on emotions, it's very easy to connect on these levels. And you'll even see it in politics, where sometimes we'll listen to a politician speak, and they'll say these vague references like, we're going to make the world great, or we're going to make, not referencing it, or we're going to make, this situation better. And there are these super vague references. And in my head, I'm like, why aren't they being more specific? Like, I want to get some specific things. And most people think like that, but they're trying to be ubiquitous. They're trying to connect with the masses. And again, they're sending out an emotional message, no specifics, where if they came out with, hey, here's the specific things we're doing, there's going to be a lot of people that disagree with that, because it's very hard to relate on opinions. But if you relate on an emotional level, that's going to bring in so much more eyes, so much more connection with that. And so when I'm working with clients or working with people, it's like, okay, let's expose the unique parts of you that aren't so unique, that other people can look at and see and say, hey, this is the person I want to work with.
Sure, 100%. And you know what's been in my mind for a few minutes now, you brought up a really interesting topic regarding AI. And it's kind of one of those double-edged swords, right? Where, what are you using as far as from branding? How can it be a crutch? And, how can it hurt you? How can you really utilize AI to, not overtake you as a brand, but help you?
Right. And I would say I'm not smart enough to understand all the intricacies of AI and what it's going to do. I just know that when there are businesses that can be easily taken over by that, it's going to be the businesses that do connect that are going to basically be able to win. Because even right now, if somebody looked online and said, find my macros, find what I should eat, give me a workout plan, like, they can type that into ChatGPT and get the same information, but they're buying it from me because they know something about me that they're like, man, I resonate with that, like, on a heart level. And again, so I think it's going to be hard to say, but to like utilize it in our own businesses. I mean, obviously using it to streamline quoting processes, streamline workout processes, streamline all your processes that are a lot easier to do. And it's a lot easier to make money that way, because then you can not pay people to do those things, obviously. But we can't use AI to connect with people. Like, we're never going to be able to have that. And this is actually a debate. One of our mutual friends, Jason, and he he's a therapist and went to school for that. And he's like, man, in the future, there's going to be AI therapists. I'm like, dude, there's never going to be AI therapists. He's like, yeah, of course there will. They'll be able to say all the right things. I'm like, you're not going to be able to relate to a computer. Yeah. Like, a computer does not know what birth feels like, death feels like, losing somebody feels like, yeah, they can maybe say all the right things, but the relatability is not going to be there. And so again, it's going to be bringing that back to, the personal connection, which that's what we use social media for. It's a social platform.
Well, and hopefully it gets a little bit better, because I don't know how many times I've tried to been stuck on responding to a text or something. And I'm like, all right, let's type this into ChatGPT and see what it comes up with. Yeah. And it's just like off the wall, I'm like, absolutely not. I will not be sending that text to somebody, because it sounds like a robot. So
not quite there yet.
There's work to be done. It's definitely not there yet. But, I personally use it just to streamline a lot of parts of my job that can just go quicker, or it's a good way to just start an outline or start something. I think there's a lot of benefits to utilizing it, but as a brand, you're right. Like, you do have to be authentic, and we're kind of a bigger company. So I know that there's like a lot of smaller, mortgage brokers and real estate agents, and they're just kind of their self brand, but how can you specifically help a bigger brand, like Trailstone Insurance Group? We're a big company with lots of people who work for us, and we're struggling to really find our authentic self, or how to show people our authentic self, because there's so many of us behind the brand.
Right, exactly. And I think, again, it's exposing the different aspects of these people. And for example, like you got a fearless leader, right? Like you've got somebody who has created this insurance company, and people want to know, like, what is the day in the life of somebody who has created an insurance company? Like, what does he wake up and do? What does his daily schedule look like? Like, what is his, and simple things like that, people will be looking at that and they'll also be like, damn, I want to work with this guy. He seems cool. Like this is the place I want to work at, because he gets up and he puts on his shoes the same way I do. He goes for a walk and visualizes the same way I do, or whatever your daily routine is, and that is really, I think, finding all of everybody's unique personalities, putting them out there. And of course, within the context of the professionalism that you guys are trying to portray, like, there's not going to be like taking beer bongs on the weekend or whatever, like those things you might want to leave out. But you or whatever it is that people do, but you're keeping it within that professionalism, but also keeping the personality, keeping the personal things in there. And it is just so amazing how the simplest, most things that we would think are not that cool or not that thing will hit so much harder on this. And again, it's a paradigm shift, because from the business world, we want to have everything systemized. We want to have everything very strategic, and strategy can almost work against you in that type of thing, because personality and exposure and relatability is everything with that.
You're right. And I think sometimes we kind of lose sight of, we're all also consumers, and we do consume social media. So when I think about the type of social media that I consume, I do tend to find myself watching someone power wash a sidewalk for 30 minutes. And you're just like, wow, where did time just go? I just watched this person power wash the sidewalk. And then there's this other girl, I'll actually shout her out because her handle is at Ash is at the gym. And I watch her. She's kind of branded herself in like, watch me my 5 to 8 before my 8 to 5. And she gets up at 5 a.m. and she works out and she gets like all this stuff done, because I think as a female, it's a lot of like, oh, how do you like shower and do your hair and do your makeup, and you have to do all these things. I feel like as a working female, especially like a single mom, I'm like, how is this girl doing all this? And she just makes it look so easy. And I will watch her. I like tell everyone about her. I'm like, she's so successful in just her, like her morning routine. And I think that's so amazing. So that really resonated with me. Not that I'm like this, fitness guru by any means. I, had my day, but I just think that we need to probably look at what we like to watch and take note of that, because that's something I really haven't done in the past, is think about, what am I consuming? What do I like? And then how can I show the things that I'm doing in a way that people might be like, yeah, it's the weirdest thing, but I'm going to sit and watch Tia do this one thing over and over because it's so interesting to me. We all have these like egos, like no one's going to think I'm cool, or no one's going to think that I'm interesting. So I think it's just really stepping outside of your comfort zone and just getting going, and seeing what hits.
Absolutely. And with that example right there, I'm sure if you were going to buy fitness from somebody, you would buy it from her.
Right.
And it's not because she's got the best program. It's not because she's providing the most information, or she's like got the best body, or any of these type of things. It's because you know who she is as a person. Yeah. And you're like, man, like I like her, you know what I mean? And I want to be like that person. And what's cool too is the more comfortable we are, the more relatable we are, the more that shines through. And the more simple we are, on my bad days, I'm talking about my bad days. On my good days, I'm talking about my good days, and whatever that is. And obviously I'm keeping it within a somewhat of a context, because I can't just be, for my brand specifically, I can't be extremely emotionally unstable. so I'm keeping it within that brand. But I'm also, throwing out these vulnerable moments, or throwing out these experiences like, oh my God, my flat tire today, and my kid's crying in the back, and this is happening. But I also got this done, and I'm doing these things, and this is a day in the life of my life. And people just love that. And those are the people they're going to buy from. And so when it comes to, bringing it back to your original question with this, I think you have such a variety of personalities, such a variety of lifestyles here. to expose those on a very authentic level. And then, of course, keeping it within the paradigm of the professionalism that you guys are trying to portray and that you're trying to, exude, but also the personality in there as well. I think is just going to be huge because you're providing a ton of information. You're providing really high quality content. And so that's like all of that is covered. Like that part is not uncovered on any way. So I think just coming in with the personalities, who you guys are, what your daily lives look like, I think is extremely powerful.
And that's something we're working on, right? There's a lot of pieces to it, and we're such a highly automated insurance company. We do a ton of automation, and that's how we've gotten as far as we've gotten. And, we even have a lot of VAs on our staff that help a ton out in the background. So I think we have like all the pieces except for the social media part. And so, that's why I'm talking to you really, is because you do such a good job at, I see you just get in your car and grab your phone and you're just like, I'm just going to whip this out and tell everyone like what's going on today, even if you've had a bad day. So I really respect that. I think that it goes a long way, and that's something that we can all learn from. So I hope everyone kind of checks out your channel and can learn from it.
Oh, I appreciate that for sure. And that's what's fun about it. It does become extremely fun. And the connections that you meet on there are lifelong, and you get some of the most loyal people, loyal customers that'll stay with you the rest of your life because of that. And I think the other problem I guess I see in the businesses that are going into the social media world is there's a lot of like, I guess, for lack of a better word, snake oil salesmen. And they'll go, okay, here's your social media protocol. We've got it figured out. And it's like some standard system.
How many times that's been in my inbox?
Exactly. Like, we will blow you up. We've got the system. We've got the system for you. And anybody selling you a system that is like that, they're literally selling snake oil, because you have to get in with the person. You have to find out who they are as a person. You have to find out the highlights of their life. Like, what are the things that are interesting? For example, the mortgage guy I'm working with, he used to do magic at like a high level, like in Vegas. And I'm like, that is freaking awesome. Like, I want you to, lean into that and lean into this. And he's like, but yeah, but magic's not really mortgage. I'm like, exactly. I'm like, but somebody's searching for that trick.
Sometimes.
Yeah. The
industry.
But, somebody's searching for that. And then all of a sudden they're like, oh, Andy also does mortgages. Like, yeah, I'm going to hit this guy up, on that level. So it's not always being like the most professional or the most knowledgeable in your space. It's just finding those things that are personal to you. So it's like, it's almost more psychology than it is strategy. And when I meet with people and I meet with them one-on-one, it's like, okay, let's figure out your life. Let's figure out the different aspects. What's your story? Like, what made you become the person you are today? What made you build this? What is your drive? Where does your drive come from? What were your hard times? What were the times you felt like you were going to fail and you didn't fail? Like, these are the stories that people want to hear. And these are the stories that people are going to relate to, look up to, be inspired by, and eventually buy from you with.
Talk about a big brand that just, we have a podcast. We have an audio only podcast, and it's the elite real estate leaders. So we have interviewed a lot of really successful real estate people or mortgage people. And it brought this to light real quick. Delroy Gill. Talk about a brand, right? This is such a brand guy. Delroy is a great guy. And if you follow him on social media, he has a big following. But what he said in his podcast, you'll have to go listen to it because I don't know that I can quote him accurately, but what he said is that he kind of started off as a lead guy. So he took a lot of leads. He was in mortgage modifications, and he was able to take all those mortgage modification people and turn them into real estate when he got into real estate. Well, I said, what would you do today? Today is such a different time for so many businesses. How would you start over today if you had to start over? And he said, I would be a brand agent. I wouldn't be a lead agent. I would never buy leads. I would never take leads. I would start building a brand. I would start being a brand. And we didn't dive too deep into being a brand and what that meant. But I think, what you're bringing to it is the psychology piece. And I think that's so powerful. And that's something that, not even I thought of doing is, getting deep into psychology with it. But some people just do it naturally. And sure. If you can't do it naturally, I think it's good to have this type of information because, again, how many people are hitting me up in my inbox telling me that they can fix my problems and I know they can't?
Yeah.
Or you pay them a lot of money and it fails. So
right.
I think that you're spot on there. That's amazing.
No, it's finding what works for that person. Yeah. And I've been through the ringer with those type of people. Like, and a lot of it I've experienced myself. Like, I've used different people and then they're like literally will just like post for you. And you're like, okay, I could have got a monkey to do that, or whatever. But one of the things,
secret.
yeah, exactly. One of the things I really respect about my original coach was he was really into exposure and exposing your story and being real and authentic and building who you are and bringing out those aspects of yourself, which is just, I mean, it's such an intangible subject. It's very intangible. It's very psychological, but it's got to be that one-on-one kind of interaction. And then you talk and then you get these ideas and be like, well, okay, you have this experience, you have that experience, but does that fit into your brand? Is that going to bring people back to your, your original mission, which of course the original mission is to bring clients in. And so bouncing off all these ideas, which can take hours with people, but then you start to build this idea. And then when people are pulling up their phone to film, they're like, okay, this does fit that paradigm that I'm shooting. And then the content flows a lot easier. And because the same thing can happen on the opposite end of the direction, where people will build up huge brands and they don't attract the clients they want. For example, like if you're doing like pranks on TikTok, you can go viral, but is that going to bring in the clients you want? You know what I mean? Or you can be some extreme version of yourself, but is that going to actually get the end game? So it's finding that middle path. And then once you have that down, then the content flows so naturally because you're like, yeah, this is personal. This also is brand related. This is also about my life. And this is also relatable. And then boom, you film and it just kind of flows out naturally from that. But until you get that brainstorming down, until you get the kind of paradigm down that you want to film in, it's too abstract for people to really dial in their content. And I think that's where a lot of people struggle.
The audience piece in particular, in that book, The YouTube Formula, it actually makes you go through like a whole bunch of questions, like who is your ideal audience? How old are they? What do they do for a living? What do they do as their hobby? Even, you get really specific, like how old are they? Are they married? You dive really deep into who your audience is. And I think that's, that was something that we kind of worked on, but at the same time, again, we didn't have the psychology piece in place, which I think is huge. So I think you can do a lot of research on that. And a lot of people don't know that they probably should research who their ideal audience is, because you can just put out all this content, like you said, and then you sell nothing still because you're a prank channel, but you're selling this product that 12-year-olds
aren't going to buy.
Buying.
Exactly.
So yeah, you have to really like you said, I kind of like the Venn diagram description. Yeah. It's like, here's our focus, and then we're going to come outside here and we're going to meet in the middle. So
absolutely.
I mean, easier said than done, obviously.
No, for sure. And people are so unique, and that's why anybody selling a system to say this is how you do it, it's very sad, because people spend so much money on these type of things. And like I said, my client who went viral by posting a Samsung video, he spent zero money on that, and it was crappy too. It was like he filmed it, was like his face was all sweaty, like the background of, I think he filmed it like, I don't know where he was at, like the laundromat or something, and it was just whatever. And obviously if you can combine quality with personality, that's the most important thing. And what's good about your guys' industry specifically is it is huge. Like everybody needs insurance. And so you don't have to like really nail down a specific, like, okay, she's a single mother at 35 and she's this and she's that or whatever, and try to find this super niche person. Yeah. And that's what's great about having a big staff and really opening their minds to opening up the social media, because some people are going to relate to you. Some people are going to relate to Mark. Some people are going to relate to Cynthia in different ways. And they're going to be like, oh yeah, this is my guy. This is the guy I want to work for, number one. This is the guy I want to buy from because I trust him. And this is the company I'm going to stay with the rest of my life. I don't care what other, ads are out there, because I see Geico every 30 seconds on TV, but these are the people that I know personally.
Right. No, this is honestly brilliant information. I feel like you do a good job helping other people with brands. And if someone was like, hey, I want Joe's help in branding my company, they just hit you up on Instagram, they find your social media.
Exactly. And it's funny because a lot of the people I'm working with that aren't in it, I'm not really connecting with them on social media because a lot of them aren't really big social media people. So it's a lot of like one-on-one personal type things like that.
Word of mouth,
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
All right. So again, it's at Mental Health Fitness.
Mental Health Fitness _ wait, no, Mental Health _ Fitness Dad at Instagram.
Mental Health Fitness Dad.
Yes, exactly.
Right, cool.
So
now we have your handle. I really appreciate all this information. I feel like you gave us some like insane insider info.
Cool.
So
appreciate it.
You've been so helpful. I appreciate it.
Yeah, happy to be on.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me on.
Cool. Thanks.
Thanks, Tia.